Well, hello, everyone. It's your girl, Gabrielle. Welcome to a brand new episode of Hot Topics. If you are not familiar with this show, let me tell you what this show is about. But first of all, where have you been? We've been doing this for a while, but that's okay. We always want to welcome the newcomers and our returning viewers. So, yes, this is the show where we talk real talk about things that are happening in education, employment, mental health, social services, physical health. We've done topics on divorce, we've done topics on budgeting, but pretty much anything that is steamy within reason, right? All right, so today is an amazing, it's going to be an amazing episode because today, let me get my banner. Today, we are going to be talking about leadership, right? We're going to be talking about what that is, what does that look like, what does that entail. So we're going to be getting deep down into the nitty gritty about, about leadership. So I am looking forward to having this discussion. And I'm also excited because I have a returning guest. He is returning to the hot seat. I think he likes being in the hot seat. He keeps coming back. His name is Shane Thrapp, and I am honored that he has come back to Hot Topics. So I'm just going to remind you about who he is. So let's get right to it. Who is Shane Thrapp? Let me tell you who he is. So Shane Thrapp is a certified life and relationship coach with a specialization in ADHD and ethical non-monogamy. He founded Creating Order from Chaos Coaching to help people dealing with life's chaos to discover their own order. For 15 years, he has used his servant-based leadership to help hundreds of people find their way through life's chaotic turmoil. He uses that experience to help clients discover their passions, develop goals, create lasting habits, and learning accountability. Awesome. All right, so without further ado, I'm going to bring him to the stage. Hey there, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on again.
Yeah, thank you for coming back to the hot seat. All right, so today's topic is about leadership. So I want to hear your perspective on that. And I'm just going to pass the baton over to you. So go ahead and share your thoughts.
Yeah. So, leadership to me has always been a very interesting thing. My childhood was really very centered around the living in the South. And so there was this concept of what it meant to be a man. And a man was always supposed to be a leader. And, I grew up in a very strict religious background. The preachers really exhibited a lot of these really negative traits. And a lot of the people who were in my life were super, you know, negative, abusive, divisive. And as I got older and I got exposed to different types of ideas about Christianity and the religion that I was in, I started being, exposed to a different style of religious leadership. And one of the aspects of it that really stuck with me was servant based leadership. I had gotten older and I was, 19. I was getting out on my own. I started going to this church, and the church was super, really open and inviting and loving. And they really exuded this sense of bringing people together, and their methodology was to bring the people who were interested into it into these small inner circles where you could go to an associate pastor's house, and y'all sat around and y'all had these very in-depth conversations about various aspects of the Bible. And from there, the associate pastors would kind of also be looking for people to mentor, because the concept of the church was there was the pastor of the church, and then he had his 12 essentially disciples. And then beneath them, each one of them would work towards having their own 12 disciples. And, it intrigued me, because here I've been really exposed to this super negative aspect of Orthodox fundamental Christianity. And now I'm being exposed to a completely different methodology. And I wound up going to essentially their seminary and learning from really passionate, loving people about what it meant to be a servant-based leader. And of course, the best example of this in the Bible was Jesus. And that stuck with me for a really long time, even after I became non-religious. There was a lot of other issues that kind of fell in there, and I didn't feel like religion was really my thing. And so for me, I eventually wound up in a situation where I had to be a leader. I got hired on as a warehouse manager. And so I had to sit down one day and I had to really think about it. And here I am, 24 years old, and I've got employees that are under me who are, 50, 60, 70 years old. And my thought process kept going back to that servant-based leadership. And so for me, a leader is somebody who does the work it takes to empower the people under him to create these to meet the goals of the business that you're in or the project that you're working on. For me, a leader has integrity, and they understand how to communicate with people effectively. They are very self-aware of themselves. They live their lives with a lot of gratitude and abundance mindset. They are agile in their thinking, and they incorporate the people that are working within them or under them with their thoughts and understanding. There's a lot of humility involved, because you want to make sure that you're not putting your own pride and ego in the way of learning more about the business that you're doing. There's that influence that you gain as you gain understanding of the business that you're working on. And there's a lot of courage and, a certain amount of respect that you earn within the process to be a great leader. There's this, dream that you have to push and the envelope forward. And in that dream, you inspire the people around you, and then you empower the people around you to achieve the dream. You give them the dream, and then you incorporate them into the dream and what it looks like and in how it grows and how it moves forward. So for me, a leader is somebody who understands the ongoing goal and then pulls people together to work on it together in a cooperative manner.
You said a mouthful there. Thank you. Thank you for sharing all that. So how does one become a leader? Or are there natural leaders? Are there leaders that are made? Are we born leaders? I might be asking a bunch of different questions. So are we called to be a leader, or can you make one?
There's a lot of different situations there. In my situation, I've always felt like I was a leader, right? Even as a child, in kind of in my group, even though I was in the group of the outsiders, the kind of outcasty kind of group, the people who don't really fit into the specific cliques that form within the school, I was always the person that people looked up to. Not only was I fairly large, I was also really athletic, and I was very protective of the people who were around me. And but I also reached out and I tried to help people. I was very much a people person, people pleasing, trying to, show the teachers that I understood, the subject matter. I tried to help my fellow students in learning things if they were having a hard time with it and I understood the subject. And I always felt called to be in that kind of situation where I led people. And then as I got older, it kept happening, right? I kept being put into these situations where, any type of social circumstance or any type of work circumstance, I would gain that type of leadership role. It may not have been the title or anything, but people around me just kind of gravitated and listened to what I had to say. And so there's a certain type of um, charisma that people have who are kind of natural born leaders. And we see a lot of these very, very toxic people who talk about the alpha males, how wolves are these alpha males and they lead the pack by dominance and stuff like that. However, there's a lot of issues with that because a lot of biologists will tell you that an alpha male in a wolf pack is he makes sure that all of the people understand how to hunt, all the wolves understand how to hunt. He shows them how to hunt, and then when people try to usurp his authority, he places a boundary, and then he asserts his own dominance by his ability to be on top of things. He's able to fight the battle and things of that nature. But he always makes sure that all of the wolves are able to eat. He's always there to make sure that the females have access to food, and he's always there to make sure that the females and the cubs are always protected. And you can't really apply that to human nature because we have too many circles. We have too many social circles, and we have too many social understandings about how to, as wolves will leave an animal behind if it's too weak, if it's too close to death. It weakens the pack. But as humans, we understand that anybody can be lifted up, and everybody should have equal rights, and everybody should have equal access to health and liberty and a pursuit of happiness. You know what I mean? And for me, when I think of a leader, it's somebody who brings everybody together. And for many people, that's kind of a natural um, inclination. They naturally come into that. But then there's a lot of people who are able to be taught how to be a leader, and they naturally thrive in that kind of environment once they understand it. And for a lot of those people, a lot of it's social. They were abused as kids, or they were downtrodden as kids, or such as like very strong female leaders. They tended to have, with our society having such a misogynistic view of women, they tended to have a lot of men keep them down. But then once you start empowering people, and especially once you start empowering women, we see them making these huge strides forward and becoming these powerhouses. And so for a lot of people, there has to be a little bit of a push to kind of be the leader that they were born as. And then there's just people who are just put into circumstances and they don't have a choice and they do it, right? There's just like there's a switch that happens. And so I think there's just kind of it's kind of the diversity of the human being in having the ability to have a lot of our leaders all kind of range from across that spectrum.
So, one of the themes that I've heard so far is about manliness and male dominance. Could you talk more about that? It seems that being a man and the image of being a man influences your view of leadership.
It's not so much being a man that influences my ideal of being a leader or anything like that. That's mainly just because of my culture and what I grew up in and things of that nature. For me personally speaking, but it's more of the attitude of a leader that people have. Now, for me, the masculine aspect of it, like I said earlier, is just that's just because of how I grew up and the culture I grew up in. But it's a kind of just attitude that a lot of men who have grown up through our culture and our society have been able to maintain, simply because of how, well, honestly, how the patriarchy has been maintained over the course of the past 5 to 6,000 years. And you know sometimes I look at that and I feel a lot of, I don't know, shame's not, regret, because how many people did we put down because they didn't fit what we thought was a masculine male attitude, personality, traits, and things of that nature. But for the most part, it's, for me as a man, it's because I want to bring people up. I want to live to that ideal of doing the best good I can for the most people I can. And the way that I understand how to do that is by leading people into an understanding of who they are, being self-aware of of what they can do and what their strengths are and what their weaknesses are, and how to capitalize on those strengths and work towards bettering the weaknesses that they have. And that's always been very much a part of what I wanted to do. And living in the culture that I did in the southern United States, it was you know it was a flip of the coin whether or not I wound up being this toxic masculine, racist, versus being a person who really wanted to bring people together and didn't pay attention to racism or to race or sexual, orientation or gender identity. I never really, you know, that stuff to me didn't matter, other than wanting to use my privilege as a white male to fight against racism, to fight against bigotry, to fight against homophobia and transphobia. And the only way I knew to do that was to bring people together, to educate them, to lift people up regardless of who they were, and then draw attention to people who were being really crappy, to hold them accountable for their actions. And for me, that's what a man should be, right? Regardless of who we are, we should be lifting the people up around us so that they are being able to excel and be who they are and be happy and have success in their lives.
So lifting up the people that are around us, that's an interesting thing that you said there. So how do we do that? How do we lift up the people that are around us? Because you mentioned a lot of different demographics. You talked about racial factors, gender factors. So how do we lift up the people around us, knowing that there are systemic blocks, knowing that there are things outside of our control? How do we do that?
So we need to first off, we have to put our ego to the back burner, right? We have to be very self-aware of who we are, and as we are self-aware of who we are, we learn to understand what privileges that we have. And I don't mean, a lot of people, whenever they sit here and are told, hey, you have a lot of privileges, they get really defensive, and they talk about, oh, well, I was super poor, and I was raised in the, trailer park. And it's like, yes, I understand that. You did not have the same privileges as other people. However, your privileges, you didn't have the same struggles as people who are minorities, or people who are marginalized, or people who have been pushed to the side of the system. You know, you haven't had the struggles of being denied mental health care or health care in general. You haven't been put into education systems where you were treated as othered, or you weren't put into a system where you were redlined. And you know that's jarring for a lot of people, and so that's why you have to really put that humility into the forefront of what it is, and listen to the people around you and be empathetic to what they're going through, and then learn from them what they need to bring themselves up, and then try to do your best to provide it. And sometimes that's reaching a hand out and pulling them up, and sometimes it's simply going, okay, you need these things. What does that look like? And helping them kind of learn and understand their own needs, and helping them become self aware of their strengths and their weaknesses. And there's got to be this ability to conceptualize the best a person can be, and show them that dream, and help them see the dream so that they start to embrace it in themselves. Take them out of scarcity mindsets where everything has to be a competition and everything has to be a dog eat dog kind of world, and bring them into this mindset where they can think of the abundance and how to cooperate with people and how to bring them up. But we have to be cognizant of what the person's situation is. You can't tell a person, and this is one of the biggest things about, like as an ADHD coach, you can't tell a person with ADHD to just pull yourself up by your bootstraps. You can't tell a person who doesn't have the ability within within their brain to understand long term reward systems. You have to learn what kind of reward system works best for each person, and develop a system that gives them that. So, a perfect example with ADHD is they work best when you give them constant reassurance that they're doing great jobs, when you give them the praise that they deserve when they deserve it, when you recognize that the innovation that they bring to the table, the creativity that they bring to the table, the um inventiveness of their brain to be able to think outside of this box that so many people are stuck in. And when you can give them that attention that they need and that they really, really, really thrive in, then they blow everybody out of the water with what they can do. The same thing goes for um, people of color and people who are marginalized, by recognizing that the issues that they actually deal with and empathizing with them, and then working to empower them so that they're able to bring themselves out of the circumstances that they're in, and to then live their lives proudly as who they are, without having to worry about the people around them judging them for things that are completely out of their control. You have to understand the people who you're trying to bring up at their level, and then help them recognize this dream that you have for them, to then move forward. Think about Martin Luther King talk about, I have a dream. His dream was to bring so many people up, and to eliminate racism, and to eliminate all of the different problems that people face. That was so much of a servant-based leadership thought process. He had a dream for people to lift everybody up, and to create a society that did nothing but improve and empower the people under it. And then by improving and empowering the people up within it, empowering our nation as a whole.
So what you're talking about is empathy, right? You're talking
Mhm.
about getting outside of yourself and putting yourself into, I know it's a common thing we like to say, but put yourself in the other person's shoes. How are they
Mhm.
feeling? What are they doing? What are they going through? So you're it's like you're acting as that person, and you're feeling what they're feeling and you're experiencing what they're experiencing.
Yeah, because we need to understand where the person is coming from. And, you know, it's very hard for people to get to that level of empathy. And, you know, I get that. I totally understand that. But it's still something that we have to do. You know, a friend of mine, Dave, he talks about, you know, your ego's not your amigo. Right. I think it's a funny saying, but it's true though. When you have too much pride and you have too much hubris and you're letting your ego run rampant, then you're not listening to the people around you and you're not empathetic with the things that people are dealing with. And so you dismiss those people as not being valid. And once you invalidate a person and their experiences and their circumstances, then you drive them down. And at that point, you're becoming an oppressor and you're becoming a toxic human being that people really, you know, have gotten used to a lot of people in America being, which is super unfortunate and really shitty in my opinion.
Yeah. So how so now let's look at the younger generations. You know, we're always trying to make the next leader. Do you think everybody should be a leader? Do you think maybe there's gonna be some leaders and some followers? So what's your advice for the younger generation?
I think people just need to be who they are. That's my ongoing mantra, just, you know, to be as authentic as possible and live a life that others may not understand. But at the same time, you know, there are people who fall into what I was talking about earlier who are kind of natural leaders. And there's people who, once they kind of break out of their shell, are able to be, you know, very strong leaders and excel. And then there's people who just don't have that same drive, but they can still thrive under finding, you know, when they find themselves under really strong leadership who sees the dream that they can push forward. And once they get into that dream and they start gaining that experience and that understanding and that wisdom of age, they become leaders in their own right. You know, it may not be, you know, somebody like, you know, going from the mailroom of, you know, AT&T to the CEO ship or you know, or something along those lines, but they are able to make their way through the company and become influential and become you know, able to fulfill a natural purpose of their life. You know, the same thing goes in their personal life. They may not be super influential around their friends, but when they get to a certain point, their friends around them listen to them. They understand that the wisdom of when that person is speaking, and so, you know, I think that, you know, people just need to do their best in their life. And this goes for our youth to try to always keep moving forward and do it with humility and, you know, be courageous and, you know, keep dreaming those dreams and keep pushing forward until you start achieving them. And that's all sounds very trite. And it, you know, for a lot of people, it's really hard, but at the same time there's no real other way to get around it. You can't move forward unless you keep stepping forward. And you know that's that's not always easy considering the circumstances of our country today.
Yeah, and I think it's especially when people of color, when they feel, how can I achieve these things when the world is against me, and it's teaching them that not the entire world. It may feel like the whole world, right? But there's always somebody that's trying to reach out. So it's taking that, looking at not looking at things from a larger point of view, but breaking it up into smaller points of view. So taking that big cookie, right, and breaking it up into itty bitty pieces. So I think it's um, you know, despite any systemic pressures or social pressures or things like that, there's always a way that someone can be a leader, no matter how small. What are your thoughts on that?
I think so. We we have to recognize the circumstances that we're in and what that means for us. And that creates a lot of boundaries that a lot of us have a hard time getting around. And that's kind of where like having that abundance mindset has to come into play. We still need to recognize again the circumstances, but we need to kind of focus on what we do have in our lives and how we can make that better. And as we get to this point where we make what we currently have in our lives and we have that gratitude for what we have in our lives, we'll get to a certain point where things will start to shift for us. And it's kind of like, pushing a big boulder and you get it to a certain point, and for some people the hill is super small, and for some people it's like the Sisyphean, endless battle. But at some point the hill starts to go downhill and you're able to sit here and start rolling it faster and faster. And then that's kind of how the abundance mindset works. You recognize the world around you, the realistic world around you. You have gratitude for the things that you have, and you keep trying to improve on what you have with what you have. And then at a certain point, you start hitting this critical mass where you then can keep moving forward. And for some people, that's the way that they can do it. And for some people, it doesn't get any easier. And that's where another leader has to kind of step in and start lifting the people up. That's what a leader really is supposed to do, is to help those people who don't see the way out, who don't see how their circumstances are affecting them, or don't have enough self-awareness or confidence in themselves to be able to know what their strengths are and how to capitalize on those strengths. A leader kind of steps in and says, hey, this is what you can do. And then they start lifting them up and they start adding people to that boulder so that it's not just you on your own. Now it's your family helping you, it's your coach helping you, it's your mentor helping you, it's a teacher helping you, it's a boss who's super, who's helping you, it's a politician or a community leader, or people are starting to help you. And that's how you lift everybody up out of the circumstances that many of us suffer from.
So I do want to point out that there are positive and negative leaders, right?
Mm-hmm.
So all that you've been talking about is great, but that's on the positive side. Someone can do those same things but have negative intentions, right? So of course, like Adolf Hitler was a leader, right? So he knew, if I remember my history, he knew the needs of the German people. I think this was after World War II. Oh, forgive me if I'm wrong, but for him to be so charismatic and to have all those people following him, he has to know. I'm assuming he put themselves in their shoes of the German people, because they were suffering. I think there was economic turmoil there as well. So I think I guess we want to just be cognizant of the fact that anyone can be a leader, and anyone can empathize, and anyone can lift people up, but it depends on where they're and what are their intentions. That's how we have so many cults and cult leaders, because they do the same things, just with the wrong intentions. So how do you distinguish between a negative leader and a positive leader?
So that's the point of servant-based leadership, to be honest. A servant-based leadership isn't going to delineate between peoples or groups. Adolf Hitler came into power because the economic hardships that the German people were dealing with, especially after World War One. That, by the way, that's when it was. After World War One, that where the all of the different countries had kind of, essentially forced him into a treaty situation. He was able to capitalize on that by scapegoating Jewish people and other minorities within Germany. And he was able to control the narrative. He was able to control the propaganda. He was able to control the minds of the people. And that's when you know there's a negativity to the leadership, because there's scapegoating and there's pushing people down and not accepting the responsibility for the actions of those who are actively working to oppress the people around them that don't fit into what their ideal person is. A servant-based leader who is positive doesn't delineate again. They don't pay attention to the any of the characteristics of a person that's out of their control. It's not based on skin color. It's not based on hair color. It's not based on eye color. It's not based on religion or any type of faith. It's not based on gender identity, sexuality. It's not based on any of that. A true good leader brings everybody around them up, regardless of who they are. A negative leader uses scapegoating and uses ideals that are divisive and cause pain, and they cause turmoil for a certain group or multiple groups around them so that they are able to remain in power. I don't really want to turn this into a whole political thing, but if you look at Donald Trump and a large number of the GOP and a large number of the upper long-term Democrats, they are spending a lot of time villainizing the other people on the other side of things. And there's a lot of really horrifying things that the GOP has done, but there's a lot of inactivity that the Democrats haven't really followed through and followed up on what they should be doing, because they're spending so much of their time attacking the GOP. And in a lot of cases, fairly so. There's a lot of things where we need to be holding certain people accountable for their actions. But if you look at like the actions of Trump, where he's villainizing anybody who speaks out against him, who speaks, out against his agenda, and every time anybody who says a certain thing, it's always fake news. When they try to control the narrative like that, that's a huge sign of negativity. That's a huge sign of a poor leader who's trying to cause a lot of divisiveness and hate. What we all need to be doing, if we truly want our nation to become something great, is to start lifting everybody from from the people who are homeless, from the people who are sick, from the people who are marginalized, from the people who are minorities, from the people who are dealing with economic poverty. We need to be lifting these people up. And that's where a positive leader comes into play. And that's where you see that's how you can identify who it is. They don't have a scapegoat of who they're blaming for it. They're too busy lifting the people around them up and holding the people who are negative accountable for their actions.
So if I understand what you're saying, a negative leader will, negative and a positive leader can achieve the same heights, but the negative leader will do it by putting somebody else down. So by blaming others, by blaming the system, by using fear tactics, they will using the outsider mentality, and that they don't understand us, they don't know what's going on. They would separate people. These are negative tactics that they would use, as opposed to a positive leader. They would include different people. They would listen to the different sides and and negotiate somewhere. They would look at different perspectives of different things. Is that what you're trying to say? Did I get that right?
Yeah, that nails it, because as a servant-based leadership, as a servant-based leader, your main goal is bringing people together, and you can't do that and maintain it um if you're oppressing other people. At some point, the empathy of the people around you will go into play, and they'll start recognizing that negativity about you. And we look at, again, if we use Hitler as an example, we look at what the nations who were arrayed against him became so prolific in rising up against what he was doing, and what he was, that there was too much antagonism towards what he was trying to achieve, and so he crumbled. And then in the end he killed himself, we think. you know and that's kind of what that a negative leader isn't able to sustain a system over the long term. They are only able to maintain it as long as they're able to control the narrative. And as we're seeing in our narrative, our nation today, the people are starting to recognize that there is something systemically wrong with our leadership and the people who are controlling the narrative, and they're starting to become more self-aware, and they're starting to call for true action. And we see so many super powerful leaders trying to lift the people up around them, like um, the various political leaders out there who are really trying to um, move forward. And think of Stacey Abrams. Think of AOC. These leaders are really starting to raise awareness of what's going on around them, and the indignities that a lot of people are suffering, and the plights that minorities are dealing with. And then we're starting to see this giant push to sit here and make equality more of a thing. And that's where we're going to start seeing this really strong drive for servant-based leadership raise up.
Interesting. All right, this is getting interesting, but we gotta start to wind things down. So, do you have any final advice that you would like to share with our viewers?
If you find yourself continuously being put in these positions of power, or wanting to move, to lead people and to encourage them to do things, look into servant-based leadership, and then start figuring out the ways that you can start applying it to your life. The same goes for the abundance mindset. Start looking at the systems that are around you, and start trying to figure out how to have gratitude for what you have, and then how to really start pushing what you have and finding your strengths and capitalizing on them, and then starting to move forward, and then start pulling people around you into your dream of moving forward. Lean on your teachers, lean on your friends, lean on your parents, and start asking for help. And as you start asking for help to achieve your dream, you'll start raising yourself up into these strong positions of power and of leadership. And then really start to use what you gain to bring the people under you who have been helping you up. Because as they raise up, you raise up. Think of a ship who's got the water underneath them, and they start building the water up, and they start raising with the water. Think of yourself as that ship that's plowing forward and moving forward, and then being raised up by the water.
Awesome. All right, Shane, thank you so much for your words, and thank you for your advice. So I'm just going to put up your contact information here. All right, so you guys watching right now, Shane is all over that social media. You can find him on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. So he's all over, and you can learn more about his services. He does have a website, which is at the bottom of your screen. Oh, and he's on TikTok. I forgot about the TikTok. Yes, so he is on TikTok, and go to his website to learn about his services. That website is at the bottom of your screen right now. Shane, can you tell us about your business?
Yeah, I'm an ADHD life coach. I also do relationship coaching, and I do career and leadership coaching. And, I really want to help people learn about themselves and to start moving that path forward and start lifting them out of the circumstances that they deal with. And so they're able to start moving forward and lifting the people around them and building their families into healthy and happy systems.
All right, there you go. And you are virtual, right?
Yes, I am virtual.
Virtual, and you do like one-on-one sessions, group sessions.
I do one-on-one sessions. I'm also a part of an ADHD men's group on Facebook, the largest ADHD men's group on Facebook, and we do bi-weekly group sessions as well as weekly sessions for the UK.
All right, there you go. All right, so you heard that yourself, guys. So he provides one-on-one coaching sessions. You can also follow the Facebook groups. So all of that information is at the bottom of your screen. I encourage you to follow Shane on social media, and I encourage you to seek out his services if you need it for yourself. And for those of you watching this episode on our YouTube channel, the information will be in our description. All right, so Shane, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me on. I've really had a good time.
Awesome. I hope you did. All right, so I'll place you backstage now. And it is just you and me, guys. So let me put up my banner. All right. And we have reached the conclusion of our episode. Thank you so much for joining us today. Please check out our social media for more videos and clips, and don't forget to follow us. Follow us, like us, subscribe to us. Whatever the directive is, do it. Do it. And while you're at it, let us know what you thought about this episode by leaving a comment in the comment section below or in the comment thread. And as a reminder, we are A Step Ahead Tutoring Services. If you would like to learn more about our services, the things that we have to offer, if you're looking for tutoring for yourself or for your child, please visit us online. Our website is www.astepaheadtutoringservices.com. The information is also scrolling below at the bottom of your screen. And there is a special discount that we're offering. If you reach out to us and you mention that you heard about us from the Hot Topics web series, we will give you a 15% discount off of 6 hours. That's right, 15% off 6 hours of tutoring when you mention that you heard about us from Hot Topics. So definitely take advantage of that. And I, Gabrielle, encourage you to sign up for our email list and our texting list. You will receive exclusive discounts, promotions, and announcements. So definitely sign up for our email list and our texting list. I encourage you to sign up for both. That information is also at the bottom of your screen. All right, there's one more announcement I'm going to make before we officially close.
Hey there, have you heard of us? We're a small team of tutors here at A Step Ahead Tutoring Services. We believe that education and information should be accessible to everyone, regardless of income, race, or creed. We're dedicated to making this happen, but we need your help. Please consider making a donation to our company. No amount is too small. Your donation will allow us tutors to remain employed, offer free and low-cost services, put on productions like this web series, and reach out to families nationwide. With your help, we can tackle the academic challenges of our students and the emotional, mental, and behavioral changes that result from these challenges. As a bonus, we can improve our communities in the process. Support us today. Note: We're a for-profit company. We're not a charity. Your donation may not be tax deductible. Please consult a tax professional.
All right, and that is it. Thank you again for joining us. I look forward to seeing you. I look forward to seeing you at the next episode. And now I am signing off. Bye.